When my husband, Michael, passed away 2 years ago, the world felt like it had gone quiet. The house in Portland, Oregon, that once echoed with his laughter and the sound of him tinkering in the garage, now felt like a cavern. I still remember that morning. Cold rain falling outside, the coffee pot half full, and his coat hanging by the door as if he'd come back any second. For months, I wandered from room to room without purpose. I'd open the fridge and stare at the shelves, unable to decide on a meal. I'd hear his favorite songs on the radio and have to sit down because my legs would shake. Friends tried to visit, but I'd often tell them I was too tired. In truth, I didn't want to burden anyone with my grief. The one person who refused to let me disappear into my sadness was my son, Daniel. At 32, he lived in Seattle, working as a graphic designer. He had his own life, friends, and responsibilities, yet somehow, he always found time to call me, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. At first, I thought he was just checking in out of obligation, but I realized he genuinely wanted to keep me connected to the world. One Saturday morning, he showed up on my doorstep without warning, holding 2 paper cups of coffee and a bag of pastries. "Mom," he said, stepping inside, "you and I are going to spend the weekend together." I protested at first. "Daniel, you have work." "I'm fine." He just shook his head. "No, you're not. And neither am I. I miss you." Those words softened something in me. We spent that weekend watching old movies Michael had loved, cooking dinner together, and even going for a long walk in the neighborhood park. The air was crisp, the leaves just beginning to turn, and for the first time in months, I caught myself smiling without forcing it. Over the next few weeks, Daniel made a habit of visiting every other weekend. Sometimes we'd go to the Saturday farmers market downtown, tasting fresh bread and sampling local honey. Other times we stayed home, sorting through family photo albums. One afternoon, we found an old Polaroid of Michael at the beach, holding Daniel when he was just a toddler. My eyes welled up, but instead of breaking down, I told Daniel the story behind the photo, how Michael had spent an entire day trying to get Daniel to build a sandcastle, only for him to knock it down every time. We both laughed until our stomachs hurt. Daniel eventually suggested we start a small project together. "Something to keep us both busy," he said. We decided to turn the garage, once Michael's favorite spot, into a workshop for refinishing old furniture. Neither of us knew much about woodworking, but we learned together. The scent of fresh-cut pine, the hum of the sander, and the satisfaction of painting a final coat brought a kind of quiet joy I hadn't felt in years. Working side by side, we had long conversations about life. Daniel told me about challenges at work, moments of self-doubt, and even dreams he hadn't shared before, like wanting to start his own design studio. I shared my own fears, too, how I worried about living alone, about losing purpose now that Michael was gone. Those talks became the foundation of something deeper. We weren't just mother and son anymore, we were friends. The turning point came one chilly November morning. Daniel had driven down with a surprise: 2 train tickets to San Francisco. "You've been cooped up too long, Mom. We're taking a trip." The city was alive with color and movement. The clang of the cable cars, the smell of fresh sourdough bread, the sight of the Golden Gate Bridge wrapped in mist. We visited museums, walked along Fisherman's Wharf, and even took a ferry to Sausalito. One evening, sitting on a bench overlooking the bay, Daniel said, "Dad, would have loved this view." I nodded, feeling the familiar ache in my chest, but I also realized something had shifted. The grief was still there, but it was no longer the only thing I felt. Beside it, there was gratitude for the years I'd had with Michael and for the bond one now shared with my son. When we returned home, I noticed I'd started making plans again, joining a local book club, planting flowers in the garden, inviting neighbors over for tea. Daniel's visits continued, but now they were less about rescuing me from loneliness and more about sharing our lives. Last spring, Daniel launched his own design studio. On opening day, I stood in the crowd, watching him cut the ribbon. He looked over at me and smiled, a smile that said, "We made it through." It's been 2 years since Michael's passing, and while I still miss him every day, I'm no longer defined by the emptiness he left behind. My son helped me heal, not by replacing what I lost, but by reminding me of what I still had. I keep that Polaroid of Michael and Daniel on my nightstand. Every morning, I see it and think of the journey we've taken, from grief to laughter, from loneliness to connection. Life will never be the same, but it can still be full. And for that, I'm endlessly grateful.